Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to welcome you to Performance, the first virtual summit organised by Launchmetrics to discuss the future of brand performance in the fashion, luxury and beauty industries. So thank you so much for joining our discussion today. The session will focus on the future is now, leveraging online channels to connect with the new luxury consumer. So speaking on this topic, we have two amazing panelists, Laurie Brookins, who is an award-winning journalist, and Antonio Carriero, who's the Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Breitling. The session itself is 30 minutes and will be followed by a 15-minute Q&A with questions that we've already collected from our social media and our networks. So please don't hesitate to participate in the chat, on the real-time polls, and share your experience in social media through the hashtag Performance2020. So that said, let me welcome to the stage our panelists and hand this off to Laurie and Antonio.
Hello.
Hello, Antonio. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you very much to Launchmetrics for asking me to participate. Antonio, where are you coming from today? Where are you speaking to us from?
I'm in Switzerland. I'm not far away from Zurich.
Ah, wonderful. So, well, I'm in the middle of New York City, so it's terrific to connect with you. I have been covering luxuries, the pandemic's impact on luxury since the middle of March from various aspects. One of them definitely was the impact on brick and mortar as we saw it here in New York City. As a matter of fact, one of the stories that I wrote for Robb Report was about how the luxury boutiques throughout New York City were boarding up very early on. And I'll get to a detail that I learned writing that story in a moment. But in the meantime, Antonio, I'd love it if you could speak to how Breitling has seen the pandemic impact your business, both from inside the workshops and from a consumer perspective.
Look, Breitling, as most of the luxury and watches brand, we had an important impact in our top line during the months of April, May, June, where of course most of our retailers were closed down. But we as a brand, we were investing already a lot before in terms of activating our own D2C digital channel, and also bringing some additional capability to our retailer to help them to sell online. So we had a kind of anticipation what could happen. It's not only because of we had the crystal ball, and we could see what could be the future. But in reality, there is an important trend in terms of verticalization and distribution. So our responsibility as a brand is to be able to build our own digital channel, to be able to connect the consumer in the same time, because we are really depending on our distribution network to provide our partner capability and support to help them selling online. So we prepare all these because it was part of our transformation journey in the verticalization and distribution, and it happened that we were deploying just before the peak of the lockdown. So this was partially mitigating the initial impact, and what is very interesting to see that after the big peak of the COVID during the spring, somehow our share of direct-to-consumer online sales is still the same. So there was not an effect after the peak of the infection. This for me means that there is a real change in the consumer expectation and behavior towards a luxury brand.
Okay, so it sounds like the digitalization already very much on your radar, but you just really had to take things into high gear when it became a necessity.
Exactly. So somehow digitalization or direct to consumer, the impact of this digitalization for the luxury segment is a kind of reality since now, I would say, a decade. So brands are highly investing in those capabilities, and the level of anticipation that we had on our side was helping us to be able to somehow respond better at the right moment, but was not, let's say, a decision just to cope with the reality. It was really a plan that we were executing since the beginning.
Okay, and when it comes to responding to consumers, I'll share that detail that I learned while writing that Robb Report story. But before doing so, what can you tell me of Breitling's experience in making the decision to close the boutique globally? Like, what was that rollout like for you guys in terms of when you shut down in, say, Italy versus London versus New York versus Zurich?
Well, first we have to cope with the local regulation. So we are depending on decision of the local government when it's about closing a point of sales or boutique. And I think it's also very important to respect the safety of our employees and our customers. So the idea is, again, first follow the regulation, and then respect the safety of our staff and our customer, but in the same time provide capability to our staff and our customer to still engage through digital capabilities. For example, we develop solution allowing our sales staff, so from our boutique, to be able to continue connecting with consumer through digital canvas, and to be able eventually also to close some sales from a distant approach. And that was our decision. So follow the regulation per country, then empower customers and sales staff to still connect and do what they do in general. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's very much in line with a lot of the luxury brands that I spoke with. Is they were literally boarding up their boutiques in Soho, in Midtown, and in speaking with security personnel for a couple of brands. One of the interesting details that they shared with me, which didn't immediately leap to mind in the initial process of working on this story, there was a lot of talk about emptying out their boutiques because they're worried about looters. And somebody very astutely pointed out to me, they said, no, they're emptying out their boutiques to get them into a central location so that online orders can continue to be fulfilled as everything goes through this. You don't want a valuable piece of merchandise stuck in a lockdown, boarded up store when somebody's trying to order it online, essentially. So obviously we know in watch and jewelry stores, product goes into vaults every night. But did you guys take a similar approach to ensure that you had that product available when it was needed from consumers who were trying to reach out to you online?
Yeah, exactly. We did more or less the same. Also, from a, let's say, organization and system setup. From our online, from our website, the inventory of the key boutiques in our network is visible for an online purchase. So this was already the case to be able to pick one of the watches that is sitting in a boutique stock and then make sure that the customer gets fulfilled. What we did in this situation, we moved back to our central location and central storage in the main markets. Most of the pieces that were sitting in our own boutique, again, to be able to get a deeper and larger inventory available for any kind of online sales. Of course, what is, I think, is important when people talk about this verticalization, it's also about real omni-channel activation. It's important then to find a way to recommission back our boutique staff when the customer is when the sales is happening through a boutique, let's say, intermediation, even if in this case is happening through a digital capabilities. So we also had to adapt to be able to make sure that everybody in the ecosystem is participating with a lot of, let's say, positive impact to what we do.
Absolutely. Now, we know that a watch purchase, especially among hardcore watch fans, is typically a very personal experience. People want that, meeting with the person they've developed a relationship with, holding the piece, trying it on. What can you tell me about sort of the personalization that you were continuing to do and are continuing to do as these challenges continue?
Yeah, look, customer journey are circular. It's not anymore something that is a straight line that is ending up in a physical boutique. So the role of the boutique or the physical place is playing an important part of the decision when the customer is finally deciding to buy the product. Then whatever is buying in a physical boutique online is up to him or up to her. Our responsibility as a brand is to be consistent across those touch points in the way we expose the brand capability in terms of content, in terms of call to action, in terms of data reactivation, so in the way we can engage with the consumer, and then allow the transaction or the transformation happening where the customer wants when he wants. So what we know is that all those elements, touch points, interaction is to participate to the final decision to buy a watch for the customer. And from a brand perspective, I think what is really important is to bring this consistency in the way we engage with the consumer. Not there is a kind of drop from one touch point, physical, to one digital, and the lack of consistency, what could make difficult for the consumer to understand the brand itself. So what we do is that we try to build in a very consistent way for our consumer, and we know that anyway each watch that we sell online or in store, the consumer spends sometimes on the website of the brand. Did potentially a search, was analyzing the brand on Instagram, Facebook, or Tmall, Taobao, for example, or WeChat, if I think about our Chinese clientele. So digital touchpoints are already participating really deeply in the decision-making process of the customer. And of course, we know that we are facing a lot of reverse ROPO. So people that get first in the store, try, test, check, compare our stores, store of our retailers, and then when they decide to buy, we have to be closer to the decision-making process. So that's why we decide to buy online. We should be able to make them design. And what is important is that we can prepare then the final step of the transaction in the most efficient way. For example, having always the stock of the inventory available. That's something that is becoming is crucial, and it's also bringing a lot of credibility in the way we embrace direct-to-consumer towards our client base.
Absolutely. One of the things I think has been pretty terrific about the watch industry, as we've all been experiencing the past 8 months, is that nobody should worry about the watch industry at the moment. Actually, what's been really impressive is how sales have continued. Orders have continued. People who are loyal watch fans, they are still getting in line and putting in their orders for those really sought after pieces. And so I'm wondering, what can you tell me about Breitling's own experience in that respect?
Yeah, but we are in the business of emotions. Buying a watch is a very emotional, irrational decision, because probably you don't need more than one, even if you need one. So from this perspective, we are already beyond this kind of need or necessity in the approach. So, and if I cannot buy now, probably I can buy 1 month, 2 months, so I can anticipate or push forward my decision to buy, still making up my mind and playing a physical and digital capability in this context. From a luxury perspective, probably we are in a better, let's say, situation than hospitality, for example. I mean, if you miss your vacation because it was closed, you cannot, well, it's missed forever somehow. In our segment, things are a little bit different. And this emotion, this need, and also the customer journey are quite long. What we know in the industry, that a classical customer journey is something between 3 and 4 months. From the decision you want to buy something to the moment that you are going to buy. And 3-4 months is giving us a lot of resilience towards the reality of the market, the situation, and so on. So that's probably something that is specific to our industry. And Breitling, we are, I would say, exactly in the middle of this kind of thinking. So we see there was a push forward in some sales that happened later, but still happening, which are compensating what we lost before. And also, again, as I said before, we see there is a new audience of a new consumer that are buying more and more online, because for them is exactly what they're looking for, which is complementing our global offering to our customer base.
Okay. And that actually leads into what I was about to ask you next. Even though historically, buying a shall we say status watch has been a personal in-person experience, we are definitely seeing that transition more and more into online sales. And that's not only true of each brand's own website and their e-commerce approach, but of course, we're also looking at incredibly popular online channels like Hodinkee and Mr. Porter, which both are finding tremendous success in selling watches on their platforms. So I'm wondering, about your thoughts on how accepting consumers, and especially the high-end consumer who is seeking that limited edition, hard-to-get piece, how much more they're accepting they are of that Hodinkee and Mr. Porter type platform to purchase.
Hodinkee and Mr. Porter are two partners of Breitling, like they are of many watches brands. I think they play a very important role in the, I would say, also in the education of the consumer. So from a content perspective, from an explanation perspective, those are very important platforms. They can speak in a more neutral way about the brand. I mean, I could talk about Breitling night and day and saying how good and bad are the Breitling watches, but I think also from a I would say a consistent approach. I mean, from a customer perspective, having neutral platform explaining, talking, presenting, comparing, are helping in the decision-making process. So I think those platforms, they play also a very important role in terms of the education of the consumer, and also somehow they can also play the role of the endpoint for a transaction. We have to find, I would say, a good equilibrium between what we do and what they do. And it is mainly happening around the kind of assortment that is available on the brand website and what is dedicated or mainly available on those platforms, even if we can find the same watches across a different platform. So they are complementary, sometimes in competition, but I would say very important from a customer perspective. We have our own mono-brand boutique, so Breitling boutique, but we also are distributing our watches through retailers, so multi-brand store. So I think those are also playing a very important role in the engagement with the customer to have the customer to make the right decision. So I see a little bit the same with those, I would say, platform. And for us, I think the selection of the platform that we are working with, the collaboration model is also based a lot on the audiences that those platforms are targeting. As any brand, we have our bread and butter audiences, historical, based on our specific positioning on the market, and we are moving towards new audiences. Those platforms could also play an acceleration to be able to get closer to the new audiences without losing the existing ones.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned collaborations. I think, collaborations and exclusive products seem to becoming so much more important in terms of drawing consumers to those platforms, so that because that idea of exclusivity, that's just never, that's always going to be integral to the watch industry.
Yes and no. Yes, exclusivity has been one of the mantra of the luxury industry forever. I mean, since the beginning. But I don't think today exclusivity is the only unique dimension around a luxury product that is resonating for a consumer. I think as a brand, we have to develop and values that are in line with the expectation of the new consumers or the audiences. And as a brand, we have to develop those capabilities in a very honest way. We have to walk the talk, so we cannot just use it from a pure marketing standpoint. And what we try to do in a consistent way, really, how do we want to position as a brand in the future? Because this will help us to engage the consumer on the very long term and bring this level of sustainability in the relation. And one of the values is what we call inclusion, sustainability, action, purpose, is where we want to bring the brand in terms of the consistency of the approach, and we have to build an ecosystem around it that makes sense. And this could bring beyond the exclusivity or extend this notion of exclusivity more on the resonance of values, which is what we are looking for in the engagement of our clientele, new customer base, and also the existing one that is also moving over time towards these new dimensions.
Absolutely. And speaking of new consumers and growing your consumer base, one of the questions I always like to ask brand executives is the role that women play in the watch industry. Also, I think as we're seeing women becoming increasingly interested in the idea of what I call serious watches for serious women, and the idea of mechanicals and being more into complications and the same types of features that men are interested in. It's no longer this idea of here's the men's watch with all the great complications, and then here's the little women's watch that's a quartz piece and it has some diamonds on it. We're definitely seeing more mechanicals for women out there, and I'm wondering if you could speak to Breitling's approach on that.
Yeah, I think we recognize, a consumer, man or woman, is a consumer. So we have to recognize the same level of interest, understanding, capability, engagement, values. And of course, this is what we try to do in the way we engage with our large customer base. But of course, as most of the brands, we have a product that probably better target a specific consumer profile. We have watches for professionals. Still very in the niche of aviation. We have watches for, let's say, people that like sports, water sports, surfers. So we really try to be in line with a kind of utilization, and this is almost is totally independent if you are a man or a woman in this approach. And of course, we have since a year, we are investing more in developing more classical chic lines that are also targeting a different taste in what could be a sport watch, moving towards a more, let's say, elegant and sophisticated in the same time. So we have to find a way to develop our product base to be able to target specifically also a more feminine clientele, but keeping very open the brands, and that's why we insist a lot on this value of inclusion on our side, that is a very horizontal in terms of the way we develop our product. But yes, I mean, we have historically Breitling has been more focusing on watches for men, watches for professionals, and since 3 years, when the turnaround of the brand started, we are moving into a more, let's say, different approach, and we try also to find the way to be able to engage with a more feminine clientele, still bringing the value and the root of the brand into the watch that they're proposing to a feminine clientele.
Very good point. And I mean, at the end of the day, Breitling does insanely cool looking watches. It's definitely one of the things that the brand is known for, that they're just gorgeous watches that also just are just, they've got an incredible sort of hip quotient. And I think I'm sure that you guys have seen that crossover of a female consumer who's walked into the store and they just want that look, and they basically don't care whether it's a men's watch or a women's watch. They're just looking for a specific look.
Correct. And you're right when you talk about look and style. For a watch, what I've seen in the past 10 years working in this industry is a kind of evolution from I'm looking for a very technical watch, very mechanical information about the watch, to more I want this kind of watch because it resonates with a kind of model example and so on. So, and I think this is also an important trend where there was probably 10, 15 years ago, a clear difference in the market approach between a fashion brands, even high fashion brands, and art luxury, where I see in the past 10, 15 years, the code are getting very closer. And the way the dynamic into art luxury is getting close to fashion and I would say even almost entertainment, because we have to create this ecosystem where the customer will recognize himself or herself and then match some of the watches on this ecosystem that then will make the decision to purchase. I don't see anymore many customers coming in and asking what is the power reserve of a watch. Mm-hmm. Or what is the weight of the caliber of a movement. This is we are building mechanical watches since 1884, so it's known that we have all these, and this is the same for many other brands. They're really looking, I want the same than Kelly Slater, or the same of XYZ. So that's the way they want to recognize themselves. So we are really moving towards a look, a style, and this style now is moving even faster into something that is close to the values that our ambassador in this case are the vehicle of, and this has to resonate with the one of the consumer.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have sort of two watch consumers that I see out there. You know, you've got the consumer who can just geek out over the smallest details, and then you do have the one who really is. It's mainly about the aesthetics.
Exactly, but I would say those two profile or specific behavior that will still remain. What is let's say collectors, they really like to know all the specific details. They will always be around, and they're very important also to the brand because they give us sometimes some very good ideas that we didn't think about, a way to bring them in our ecosystem, which is, I would say, the very traditional way that the industry is taking into account. But yeah, I see this new trend of consumer more interested by the entire ecosystem of the brand, by the look, by the style, by the approach, which also bringing a different information to the brands, and we bring a different level of interaction. One is complemented to the other. They are not in competition.
I agree. I want to definitely get to some of the questions in the chat room. One that definitely caught my eye was, how do you define a luxury online experience, from Daniela Cortez?
To me, so first of all, I think one of the objectives is not to replicate the in-store experience online. I've seen many times many brands are talking about the selling ceremony that you have to replicate online, try to copy and transform. I think that's not the right approach. I think online has its own code of engagement. And as a brand, we have to excel in managing those codes of engagement to be able to personalize the engagement with a consumer through the digital canvas. Mm-hmm. And I think this is very important. This personalization is something that we always have in the physical store, but we don't need to replicate the selling ceremony that we have in a physical store online to get to a level of personalization that making sense from a consumer perspective when you're online. And I think as a brand, we have to find and work on the data that we need to be able to get to this level of personalization, which is a high sophistication in terms of the way I engage with the consumer. This is what we have to build.
Okay. And another question that came through was, how can, from Khalil, how can we avoid / compensate for the challenges that digitalization creates for luxury?
To me, digitalization is more an opportunity for the luxury industry than a challenge. Of course, any transformation has to be anticipated, but I don't see digital as a challenge that is putting at risk the luxury industry. One of our value is our equity, and the equity is our history. This is something that the digital cannot challenge. What digital is challenging today is the distribution in the luxury industry mainly. So as a brand, we have to anticipate and build our own capability in the digital ecosystem around a new distribution model that then is forcing us a new cost structure on the brand side to be able to make things happen in a different way. That's probably the challenge, but I see as more an opportunity. In any case, as a brand, my future is in my relation with our customers. And this is what we have to build. In this case, the digital is even an acceleration of those capabilities on the long term.
Okay. While I'm thinking of it, I'm going to ask the question because I think any watch fan out there would want to know. What can you tell me about the watch that you're wearing today, sir?
I'm wearing still a Super Ocean Heritage B01, so a manufacturer movement, 44 millimeters. It's a blue dial, blue strap. I'm wearing a blue shirt, and that's okay. The main reason.
And you can't go wrong with blue these days. It's become the go-to color, hasn't it? So
yeah, when the sky is gray like today, I like to still think that we are in the summer.
It's gray here in New York also, sir. Let's see, another question. Somebody's asking, let's see, how has the Breitling digital certificate feature been received by consumers?
I have to say very well. I think very well. There is a clear understanding that what we put in place is to empower the consumer. So I'm a believer that digital is empowering consumer, and the brand has the obligation to use digital to even more empower consumer, to increase the value, the perceived value of the product in the eyes of the consumer. So they understood that we are not collecting data. It's not what we are doing. We are giving it to the consumer, an instrument to have a full transparency, traceability of the product, and bring an ecosystem for what you call the tradability. So, the pre-owned watches market in our industry, in terms of value, is close to 18 billion. When we know that the new watches value is something close to 50 billion. So, a very, very important part of it. So, I think as a brand, we have a responsibility also when you buy a watch to think about what will happen after. So the idea to bring an entire ecosystem, which is very simple because it's a digital wallet supported by blockchain, that is giving to the consumer all this information and also the possibility to use this to sell the watch, or to trade in the watch. And also in the ecosystem, we also provide a real-time valuation of the value of the watch based on the watch itself, the single unique watch. And then, of course, there is a market impact, some references, hyper or on hype or not. So this is what we do, and at the moment I would say, we had a soft launch in March with one limited edition, the Top Time. Was a little bit to test and calibrate the capability of the entire, let's say, system from a technology perspective. And now, since the last 2 weeks, we are live, so each watch leaving the manufacturing plant has a certificate. And you were surprised how the rate of adoption is already very, very high. So we are very happy of this, and this is also why we decide to anticipate the possibility to redeem or request a digital certificate for a watch that you're already owning. So, and we also think and really want to provide those capabilities to the entire watch industry. So as I said a few times in few posts, what we build is free and available to any watch brands that they want to use it. Our own watch brands, a luxury brand, any kind of brand that has the same need, what we really want is to provide a solution for our customer, and we know our customer also as a customer of our competitors. So, and we work in a conglomerate with other brands to promote those capabilities. Is what we are doing now.
Okay. I definitely also wanted to talk briefly about the secondhand market and the role that auctions are playing in watches these days. We're finding auctions both for vintage pieces, and we're also seeing it as an increasing channel just to get new pieces and highly collectible pieces out there, limited edition pieces. How do you see sort of auctions and online auctions as well, sort of, playing a role or impacting your business, if it is at all?
Yeah, I mean, probably, we as a brand in our price range, brand positioning, we don't have yet a strong impact from this ecosystem that's happening in parallel. But I think very interesting from a democratization of the decision to buy online a high-value product. What I've seen in the past 10 and 15 years, at the beginning when we start all those journey around selling online watches and jewelry, a long time ago for me, people say, I don't know, nobody will never buy forget it doesn't work, forget it. No, I heard so many times. And any kind of platform solution that is providing the possibility to buy high-value product online is helping to sell high-value product online. So I see in a very positive way those capabilities and also this simplification of the access of the product through the digital channel.
Thank you. I'm going to insert a very quick note in here that I'm muting my microphone because in our lovely pandemic world, somebody's working outside in the hallway of my apartment, and my dog may start barking at any second now. So just throwing that out there for our audience and hoping everybody's cool with it. So let's see, I'm going to go to another question here. I did think that this was also an interesting point. Again, I think you've been saying such terrific things about about the luxury experience, both in person and online. But again, there's just this sort of like one-on-one experience that, regardless of category, the consumer really seems to value. They almost build that one-on-one experience into the price that they're paying for whatever it is that they're coveting.
But
no, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but in a class, I mean, if I'm a consumer spending, I don't know, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 10 hours in a month visiting the website and the digital properties of a brand. Mm-hmm. So this is my engagement as a consumer. I use my time to better understand you, even if at the end I want to buy something from you. So I think it's an obligation of the brand to understand all these, and when the consumer is getting back, to use all this information available to be able to personalize the engagement.
Okay.
Of course, if the customer wants to be recognized, there is no obligation. But imagine that you are looking for a specific watch. So you spend time on the website, you browse the website, and so on, and you finally, for example, you decide to register for a boutique appointment, for example.
Okay.
Open, you register for a boutique appointment. Your expectation is when you get in the boutique that the sales staff knows a little bit about what you're expecting, what you were doing, what you did, what you know about the brands, because you spend time on it. So imagine how it would be disappointing from a consumer when you enter the boutique and it's like you didn't do anything, any engagement in the brand. So if I spend time on the website and I register for a boutique appointment, I have the expectation at least the watch that I was looking for, they're available in the boutique. I will not go there just to lose my time. So that's very simple engagement, personalization, but it's terrific in terms of value, empowering the consumer, also because I recognize the engagement. And if a brand is capable to recognize the engagement of a consumer, this, I think, will bring to the eyes of the consumer a different perception of the value, even of the product itself. And today, all this possibility exists. It's more up to the brand to be able to connect the various dots, which is a data in the end, and injecting what we do in a consistent way, which is also bringing a lot of transformation at the point of sales, for example. How can we empower our sales staff with those new digital capabilities to be able to use it in a simple way, without a complex training, a complex transformation? And I think one of the idea that we have is to help our staff, for example, to think about their own life, what they do on a daily basis. They have no issues of when they play with one phone or they use one phone or the other, they have to engage in a normal life. So how we can bring the same flexibility and simplicity into a tool for the work. And we did a lot in China as a kind of laboratory to test capabilities that we bring back then into the other countries for a kind of additional acceleration.
Okay. We're about to launch into the height of holiday shopping. It will be here before you know it. It should be kicking off fairly soon. Hopefully we're going to have a strong holiday shopping season with everything that's been going on. And I think most people, because of the pandemic, are going to be seeking out online experiences much more than we've seen in past years. What can you tell me about how Breitling, have there been conversations about sort of stepping up things even more with the approach of the holiday shopping season?
Yes, absolutely. We have been working in the past few months in a revamping of our website. Which is our main web, let's say, digital properties to be able to engage with consumer. We've been collecting a lot of analyzing what happened in the past months, and we are going to go live just before Thanksgiving for the American market with a new version, which is focusing only on mobile. We think a lot about personalization and a guided, let's say, engagement to be able to extend and empower even more the consumer when he's on the website of Breitling. So we've really been using the acceleration somehow of the past few months to review what we do, rebuild some capability, and be even more efficient in again with the the ultimate objective to be even closer to the consumer and empower the consumer even further. So that's what we did, and if everything goes well, cross fingers, in a couple of weeks we'll be able to go live with the new version.
Well, I'm excited to see that, no question, and especially, the idea of a mobile experience versus desktop, which actually is definitely a valid point. We're both sitting here on desktop, on laptops right now, talking to each other. Have you really invested a lot in turning it into a really seamless mobile experience that also, without giving away too much that you're about to launch, of course, because that idea of watch fans who really love to zero in on the details, I think is super important for the success of any experience.
Yes, especially in some elements, which is the navigation itself, the search capability on the website, where to position the menu. Very simple things that, most of us are right-handed people. And when you swipe on the right. I mean, we use the right thumb to be able to. So very simple things that we decide, okay, now we have to really move one step forward. Is much more visual, much more full page or full screen pictures to be able to be much more immersive in the approach. Again, an extended utilization of data to be able to personalize the navigation and the experience anytime. So we believe somehow the mandate for the team was forget that you also have a desktop website and make sure that everything that today is still happening on the desktop will happen on the website, on the mobile one. So let's say a kind of acceleration, which is only one first step, and we are thinking ahead to be able to continue in this way for the next few years. And on top of it, we are going to launch something totally different in the industry very soon. It's not for this month. It will be more beginning of next year. We're going to tackle first the American market with a very, very different approach on how to acquire a watch. And I cannot really say more. But it will be a kind of I would say interesting revolution. And this also is completely driven by the way we imagine the engagement of a new audiences of customer with a luxury brand. And it's not only about experience, it goes far beyond the experience, and this without jeopardizing the value of the product. So we are really thinking not limited edition, really something completely different we want to launch in starting from January. And I really hope this will set a new standard in the industry when it's about proposing watches for a new audience of consumer that will become at the end of a very interesting journey, our new real customers.
Ah, that is very intriguing, sir. So...
I'm playing a little bit, but something interesting will pop up very soon.
Okay. And speaking of sort of in the new year, anybody who either works in watches or covers watches or who loves watches, January, February, March meant SIHH and Basel and Watches and Wonders, and we're still not ready to go back into those big convention centers, and I'm wondering sort of if you internally have been discussing how the cancellation of those shows has impacted your business, and how you're making the shift from just not being able to do those big in-person events.
Yeah, look, we were the first brand stepping out from Basel World, and this was almost 2 years ago when we announced that we were leaving. So we were already preparing the future in terms of the way we want to engage with our customer, retailers, media, press, all our audiences. And we were thinking since the beginning that we have to find a way to blend the digital engagement and physical engagement. Again, one is complementary to the other. So in the past 7 months, we had our 3 online or digital summit where we were presenting the new collection through a 10-15 minutes video through the various capability, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, our own website, Weibo, and WeChat in China, presenting to our audience the product. And we went through different stages in this mechanism. The first was we present a new collection. The second was already more telling a story. It was a kind of movie where we were explaining what Breitling is, where Breitling is going, and why we are doing all these. And the third one, in the same dynamic, we also were testing a capability of see now, buy now. As I said before, that we are moving towards more fashion look, dynamic, and different way of engage. So I think those are what we call digital summit are very complementary to what we do when we engage with our customer and consumer, our retailers, and even in the relation with our retailers, we build a set of application that we use to promote the new collection. We help them to discover the new capability of the brand, and so on and so on. So I think complementarity is what we have to build in the future. Sometimes we'll be more digital, sometimes more be physical, and the two, they will bring this understanding of the brand. In 2020, 2021, we don't wait anymore a big event like a big fair to know what is the new watch. I mean, we have had other ways to reach our partners. Probably was not the same 20 years ago or 25 years ago, but remember, 20 years ago, when you want to know something precise of a watch, you had to enter a physical store. You would get out with a catalog, 2 kilos of paper. It's not very sustainable in terms of approach. And if you were lucky enough, we had another small leaflet where we had the prices, and the game was to combine the two to try to understand what is the cost of which watch. Today, this is not happening anymore. So there is an important evolution, and digital has been helping a lot to bring a level of. So we have digital savvy customer, and because they are digital savvy, they live in digital, they also watch savvy most of the time. So we cannot use the same tools, we have to speak in a different way, and digital is helping a lot in this new dynamic, again, complementary to the face-to-face, one-to-one discussion and meeting people, which is also part of our nature as a human being, that we like to meet people, and we like to meet people all the time.
Cool. If I can.
So sorry to interrupt, but this is a conversation. But unfortunately, we only have time for one more question.
Okay. Let's see. I wanted to see if I can ask one of the questions that we have left here. I mean, some of the questions that we've been getting, they really have been highly focused on interactive and that one-on-one experience. And I don't know if this will be part of the mobile launch, but a couple of people are asking about TryOn Experiences and how that might play a role in the future. And I'm seeing you got a sly smile on your face. So anything you can tell me about that?
No, something like this. I think there are. We have to build this new audience of customers, and we have to that is highly engaged digitally, and we have to bring somehow the watches on the wrist in a different way. So yes, we are working on something like this, but also, for example, in the field of customer service or after sales, mechanical watch, they need the services after 2 years, 5 years. They need some repair. Very mechanical product. They also that's the history of the watches itself, and we are also thinking about providing you a watch while your watch is in repair, so that you can experience something else from the brand. And so those are ideas that we are working around. Of course, there is a cost associated. We have to think about the cost structure to be able to make it happen. And yes, about what you said before is going in the direction of what we are building for the next year. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I definitely await that with great anticipation. So I'll wrap things up here. Antonio, thank you so much for your time today. Your insights have been fantastic. Breitling's a fantastic brand. And sir, I very much hope that we can see each other and say hello in person sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you again. Bye-bye. Thank you to everybody at Launch Metrics.